We are approaching the anniversary of the unaliving of the late great Chalino Sanchez this May 16th, and it feels like his legacy is being torched. Jimmy Humilde, CEO of Rancho Humilde Records, went on the Brown Bag podcast and seemingly exposed members of Chalino's family for allegedly suing him for using Chalino's name or likeness on some of his merch, but he did it kinda disrespectfully.
All right, we'll go pick him up after.
You know Chalino sued me for that?
Yeah, because it says Chalino on the back.
Oh, damn.
You know Chalino
Wait,
sued
but
me
he's...
for that?
Bro, how do you sue you?
Well, you know his people...
Okay,
Oh,
bye. Bye, Jimmy. Bye.
Now that clip has apparently been deleted from the original podcast, but it's still making its rounds on los redes sociales, and fans are not happy, pointing out the way they're talking about the situation and laughing about it is disrespectful. And of course, they're pretty ticked off with Jimmy Humilde's language R.E. Chalino's family. Rancho Humilde Records has greatly profited from the careers of narco corrido artists like Fuerza Rejeda, Nathaniel Cano, and Junior H, and disrespecting Chalino is a no-go because the entire genre owes a debt to him as the first ever narco corrido singer-songwriter to go mainstream and popularize the genre. Chalino was a badass through and through. He was born in 1960, the youngest of 8 siblings in a poor and violent area of Sinaloa. His father passed when he was just 6 years old. As the lore goes, his sister was SA'd by some cartel capo when he was just 11, so Chalino bided his time until age 15 when he found himself at the same party as this goon. He then walked right up to him, pulled out a gat, and wasted dude. Now this guy was a pretty well-connected capo, so Chalino had to immediately go into hiding. He fled to Tijuana where he peddled contraband and worked as a coyote before fleeing again to the US, eventually settling in Inglewood, California with his aunt, where he continued to work as a coyote and peddled with his brother Armando. But tragedy would soon strike, and in 1984, Armando was unalived in a deal gone wrong in Tijuana, so Chalino then went to Tijuana in a bid to avenge him, but he was instead arrested for 8 months. While in prison, Chalino would play corridos telling stories about narcos and their exploits to entertain other inmates in jail. His corridos got really popular in prison, and word even spread outside. Soon cartel capos started hitting up Chalino to write corridos for them. When Chalino got out of prison and moved back to California, his fame was growing. He developed a reputation, and cartel capos from Mexico to California would commission songs from him. Chalino started working with a producer and making cassette tapes. Now, much like in modern day, radio was refusing to play him because of the narco themes, but this only made him more popular as his underground fame spread. He made a living bootlegging his cassette tapes and performing live, and business was good. Then in 1992, Chalino was playing a concert in Coachella with 400 people in attendance when an inebriated fan named Eduardo Gallegos climbed onto the stage and opened fire on Chalino. Chalino, who was always packing, returned fire, and a shootout ensued where Chalino took a bullet to his lung. He survived, and while he was recovering, his fame skyrocketed because of this incident. His sales were through the roof, and he was receiving offers to play everywhere, including an offer to do a short tour back in his home state of Sinaloa. Chalino's friends and family were very much against him taking the gig because in the time since he'd left, Chalino had developed a lot of enemies because of the stories he told about cartel capos and his songs. Many of these cartel bosses thought he'd grown too big for his britches and just kinda had it out for him. But Chalino went ahead anyways. On the 16th of May, 1992, Chalino was playing a concert in Culiacan, Sinaloa, when he was handed a note from someone in the crowd. Nobody knows precisely what the note said, but the general consensus is that it was a warning that this would be his last night on the planet. In video footage of that moment, we can see the blood drain from his face, and then he wipes sweat from his brow and belts out an impassioned rendition of his song Alma Enamorada, which we hear everywhere today.
Tengo el alma enamorada, no más de pensar el corazón.
Right after that concert, Chalino's vehicle was pulled over by fake police officers who demanded he go with them. Chalino agreed on the condition they not harm his friends and family in the vehicle with him. He was found the next day, bound and gagged with bullet wounds to the head. Many think the perpetrators were associates of a sicario named Rene Escobar, who had been brutally unalived just a few days prior, and for some reason a rumor had spread that Chalino was the culprit. But the Sanchez family's sadness doesn't end there. Chalino's son, Adan Sanchez, followed his father's footsteps and was on his way to being a successful musician in his own right when he was involved in a car accident that took his life a month before he turned 20. Many fans think the was suspicious, especially because it took place in Sinaloa and Adan had lived in California his whole life. As you can see, this family's been through it with little reprieve, and meanwhile, Chalino paved the way for Nata, Junior, JOP, and by proxy, Jimmy Humilde to become rock stars. So you can see why it must be frustrating to not get compensated for using him on the merch and then getting punked by these unruly kids and Jimmy Humilde on a podcast. Now, Jimmy would take to social media to apologize to Chalino's wife Maricela and daughter Cynthia, clarifying that his words were targeted at the t-shirt company he collabed with that used Chalino's likeness without licensing it. He reiterated that he would never disrespect Chalino or his family.
Nada que ver, con todo el gran respeto. Todos saben la admiración que yo le tengo a Chalino. Tengo el carro de Chalino, tengo murales de Chalino, tengo lo que no saben. Ustedes saben lo que es Chalino para mí.
Fans in the comments are a little skeptical and Jimmy's in the weeds doing battle with them. But what do you think? Is he being honest?